Of publicly hijacked buildings, we have, Lwazi, you said, 338 buildings that have been hijacked that are owned by ours. I'm very happy that we reclaimed one in eThekwini a week ago, which was Excelsior Court, after I went there to visit it. But what it shows me is that there clearly is a need to conceptualize what the state wants to do with its assets. If there are 338 buildings that have been hijacked, and I met with the mayor of eThekwini this week, which also dealt with a number of bad buildings there, it's clear that the state doesn't use all of these buildings and never will. So we then need to start optimizing them, rationalizing them, disposing of them, call it what you will. But what we can't allow is our buildings to contribute to crime in communities, in cities, be used to do all manner of other things, to lower property values. It's just not fair on residents in cities and suburbs where our buildings are not being looked after or not secured. So firstly, we have to secure what we own, and then we need to start then working with municipalities on whether we want to still keep them or not. In terms of the asset register, I've been provided a report that suggests that it's nearly completed and puts a total valuation of 155 billion rand to our assets. If I'm honest with you, Paul, I'm not comfortable or convinced that the asset register in the state that it is accurate, or that the valuation is fair and true. Because I have been contacted by many members of the public to say that, did you know you own this? Do you know that you own that? Or this house was owned, but it's now been transferred to someone. And I think that there's been a lot of malfeasance with regards to the register, because it's provided a smokescreen for people to loot assets of the state, if I'm honest. And so, while it's important to get the asset register right, we need to do two things at once. We need to write the asset register, as well as start looking at what we are doing with the assets that we own. How do we support the program of government? How do we support local municipalities? How do we work with other ministries to drive things like inclusionary housing, social housing, and the like? So it needs to be two things at once. I don't have an answer yet on the asset registry. I'm still applying my mind as to how we are going to bring some form of credibility, or whether it needs to be redone. But these are the sorts of things that we need to contemplate. And then also what I want to say is, what I've also said to the department is, I want us to start looking at examples of experimenting as well. So as an example, in eThekwini, we have this former police barracks. As you drive into the city, it's been completely stripped. There's nothing left there. And for 5 years, the police have been unable to tell us whether they want to use the building or not. So it's this back and forth, back and forth. So we've now written to them and said, you must now tell us in 30 days whether you're going to keep the building or not, at your cost, obviously. And if they come back to us and say, well, we don't need it anymore, we're then going to put out a request for proposals to the public. And we're going to say, well, let's see what the public thinks we can use. We are making our problems his problems, and the people who live in the city and work in the city, their problems. For 10 years, we can't have a discussion about whether we should or shouldn't have security that's adequate, or whether we should or shouldn't have floodlights. This problem has existed since 2015, and we're having a discussion about whether we should have floodlights inside a building or not. That doesn't make sense, guys.
that have gone missing.
But how can you walk into a government building, take what you want, and then walk out?